Hey guys, before today's episode, just letting you guys know you can support me directly on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/golocopod, where you can support me for as little as just $1 a month. Every patron helps this show, and I hope to continue to create more episodes for you guys in the future. Now, welcome to the GoLoco podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me from the YouTube channel Drunk on Games. Jonathan, how are you? How you doing, dude? Every single episode starts off like that, and I don't know.
Always the awkward intros.
Always the awkward intros. Just
awkward intros, always to set the tone.
Because
here's the bar that you asked for.
Because if you don't have an awkward intro, how do you know we're real? We could just be like CGI, just programs.
That would be interesting, because I am indeed from a different YouTube channel. So you're saying that entire YouTube channel is also CGI?
And this podcast, life is CGI. We're actually in Tarantino's new film.
What's it called?
Shitty Internet.
Shitty Internet. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. That's why. I didn't say it had to make sense. It just was one of his ideas on his other script that he threw away. But anyway, so you're from Drunk on Games. Just introduce yourself and maybe some random fun fact, just any fun fact to make it fun.
My name is Jonathan Grothy from Drunk on Games. We started that YouTube channel 2 years ago now. Oh man, it's been a while. But started it with the realization one day that nobody's making drinking rules for board games. Tried to throw a birthday party for a friend who just turned 21 and said, "We're going to get you drunk on your favorite game. What is it?" And we looked up drinking rules for it, couldn't find anything. So we made them, and then we realized we should just keep making them. And eventually that turned into the YouTube channel for Drunk on Games.
And you're one of the hosts of Drunk on Games.
I am that guy.
You are that guy.
I am that guy.
You are one of the two guys that introduces the video.
We started as a co-host setup, and then Ginger, my co-host, moved to the Philippines and got married. So that ended that. Yeah, and I am more or less the main host of just about everything, but we now share a lot more of the responsibilities with the entire crew. Right. Picking games, deciding when and where and what to do, and which games to do for the legacy styles and everything.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool, because I would assume most people are just like, "Oh, we're just gonna play a board game, and then maybe we'll drink." But you guys were just like, "Fuck it, if we're gonna drink, we'll make it fun while having fun playing a board game." But I just there's a question I've been having when I asked you to interview with me. It's that, so right now I feel like we're in a pop culture explosion just in general with the rise of the internet, social media, and everything. I feel like there's a new billion-dollar blockbuster every month. Mm-hmm. It feels like music just is so varied now. Any genre can be popular. Any genre you can find it. Video games are making multi-million dollars at tournaments, but it feels like to me that at the same time, despite all the advancement in technology, board games feel more popular than ever, at least in modern times. Can you explain in your own words why is it like that? Even though there's so many options. I don't want to say board games are bad. I'm just I like board games. I'm just asking why does it feel like that?
Board games are on the rise. They have been rising in sales by 15 to 20% per year for the last, I want to say 10 years, but I'm probably wrong. But it's been on the up for a long while, and I always explain it for two reasons in my mind. The first one is that everyone is finally realizing that there are games beyond Monopoly. Because if you ask people to this day, "Oh, you play board games," and most of them, oh, you mean like Monopoly? No, Monopoly is a horrible game. and there's just so many more games out there. There are a couple of hundred new games published every single year. So even if I wanted to, I could never play every board game ever made. But there are thousands and thousands of amazing games out there, and it's finally becoming natural to see that. So now you can go down to even just Target, and they've got a good selection of about 30 games, and I'll tell you, at least 3 or 4 or 5 of those are on my shelves in my own collection. So they're not just whatever random crappy games, they're actual games. Like, they're finally doing good things. And the second reason, I think, is exactly the pop culture explosion.
Right.
With more and more being able to connect to everybody right at your fingertips, being able to just pull out your phone and chat with everyone, we're doing less and less real connecting and less actual conversations in person. And that, it kind of makes it a little harder for everyone to socially connect.
Right.
And so I feel like board games have risen in popularity because they're a way to physically connect, but kind of also have a safeguard, like a little barrier in between. So if I think this conversation's too awkward and I want to back out, I'll just focus on my turn. I'll focus on the next thing going on in the game, and then I'll answer when I'm ready. Or then I'll come back and chat again in a minute. But it gives you that middle ground, that meeting point. Everyone can have that commonality, know there's this commonality, and not be afraid of the fact that, oh, I'm going to talk to this person, I might say the wrong thing, or we'll get on a weird topic, or end up on politics or something.
Oh. We love politics.
No, fuck that.
Yeah, no, but yeah, for you personally, why are board games so important to you? Like, as someone personally, I'm more of a video game person, just myself, just naturally. That's how I grew towards growing up, and that's right around when PS2 era, so that's when it really started blowing up nationwide, I feel, in popularity wise. But why for you are board games so, like, if you guys can't see it, but he has literally hundreds of board games behind this laptop.
I own about 200 board games.
200.
I also got rid of about 100 board games last year alone.
So at minimum, we're talking 300 plus board games.
Too many board games, I won't lie, and I keep getting more. But for myself, my journey to board gaming is kind of interesting because I grew up playing card games. I have ADD and fidget and get distracted way too easily. And as an overactive ADD child, my mom was smart, and she.
We were talking about.
Like I said, I grew up the ADD child, the ADHD child, with too much energy, all over the place, always hyperactive, energetic, and relatively smart, but I couldn't sit still. And so my mom was very smart about this. She would bring a deck of cards, a small one of those mini decks, like a quarter of the size of a real deck of cards. She'd bring one of those in her purse everywhere. And then when we'd go out to eat dinner, or when we'd go to the movies, or whatever the case may be, if there was downtime, she'd whip out the cards and we would play some games. And so I grew up playing games, but pretty much just card games. I've played almost every card game imaginable, and if I haven't played it, it's probably been developed in the last 10 years.
Right.
But then growing up, I was also more of an outcast, so I did love video games like every other kid did. But mine were always RPGs. So I would just immerse myself into whichever world and just get lost in it and play hundreds of hours per game. But by the time I got to college, I finally learned social skills.
Right.
I didn't start with any. Oh my god.
I'm still learning.
Trust me, it's a long journey. I just never gave up, apparently. And eventually it worked. So by college, I was a lot more social, could make a lot more friends, but was still a nerd. So then I got into playing Magic the Gathering for a couple of years until the drama at the store, too annoying, moved on to other things. And the way I found board games was I was working at Great America's Halloween Haunt, and I made friends with just about everyone around me. That is a great job, by the way, because they pay you to scare people. How friggin' awesome is that? But one of the days working there, one of the mazes was based on one of the rides, and that ride would constantly break down. So one night it broke down close enough to closing time that they decided, screw it, it's not being fixed tonight. And so they sent all of the workers from there and just said, go invade our maze. So we were cornstalkers and they were like radioactive mutants. And they're like, well, we've got radioactive mutants in the cornstalks tonight. And so I made friends with this girl who was really cute and added her number and wanted to hang out with her, of course. And she's like, well, come play games with me. And I said, what? Okay, sure. And so bummed a ride down to Santa Cruz, where they hosted weekly, I think it was weekly. And it's been so long I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure it was weekly game nights.
Right.
And I loved it. Like by week 2, I didn't even care that she was there anymore. I had so much fun playing these board games with these people. And we played Guillotine, Pandemic, Munchkin, all kinds of weird games. And it was a blast. I was a part of that group for at least 6 months or so. But then I went home for summer. And when I came back for the next semester of college, by then they had disbanded the group. Just not enough people were meeting up regularly that they were like, we're going to be done.
That's pretty...
Yeah, it's pretty sad. So, fast forward like 5 years or so later, I had been constantly wanting to start my own board game group because I missed it.
Right.
And finally I joined our fraternity, FIO. And in joining, our membership VP, Ryan Davis, your G8 or whatever that was.
Yeah.
But our membership VP, I interviewed him for one of the interviews I needed to do. And in the process, we got on the topic of board games, and I started explaining how I really wanted to start a board game club. And he was like, then let's do it. And so we made a pact right then and there. We said, we're going to play board games every Friday, whether anyone else shows up or not. That's it. That's what you're going to do. And, some days it really was just us. But after a while, we got a decent regular turnout of like 4 or 5 people. And that was the start of it. So we've since moved on and off campus and all the way to Tuesdays. And it took like 2 or 3 years before we finally got, past even 10 members to where we were playing more than one game per night or per group. And now, like almost 7 years later, we get almost 30 people a week.
30?
Yes. Yeah, it's anywhere between like 25 and 30 people a week. We do not fit in this house anymore, but we do it anyways. And along the ways, I stumbled into... Oh, that's another funny story, though. I stumbled into another board game club.
All right.
So I've joined a bunch of others, but I've only ever committed to one other. And I found it by accident because I worked at Santa Clara Swim Club. And it seems like jobs are always the reason why I get these things. But I worked at Santa Clara Swim Club, and I was talking to one of the newer members about how they were trying to extend the hours, but they weren't allowed to extend mine because I run board game nights.
Right.
And this just big, beefy jock of a guy, like, literally when you think, the dumb jock, that's him. That's exactly describes him. And he, like, kind of moseys over and says, game night, I'm in one of those. And I just look at him like, no, you're not. You just want to be in this conversation. No. And I'm just, no, you're not. It's like, yeah, no, really, I'm in one of those. They meet up every Thursday night. I'm like, really? Where? Because that's tonight. Oh, it's like down the street at Round Table. And I said, okay, you're bringing me. Like, I was calling him on his bluff. I'm like, no, I don't believe this. And lo and behold, there was a board game club.
At a Round Table?
Yeah, at Round Table Pizza over in Santa Clara. And apparently, the story makes more sense later because apparently he was invited to meet one of the girls there. And that never went anywhere. But he was recent enough in it that those things overlapped, and therefore I found that board game club.
Right.
But that club is run by a game designer named Jeremy Commander, and he's made a good handful of games like Pirate 21 and Booze Barons, and I can't think of any of the other ones right now, but he is a game designer.
Right.
And the way he runs his board game club is every second Thursday of the month is prototype night, So it's all prototype board games all night long. So game designers from all over the Bay come together, pitch in to buy the food for people like us who just come play the games and give them feedback. That way they can work on their up-and-coming games and perfect the game before it gets published. So it took me like four or so months before I finally got smart enough to go, hey, isn't that mean there's a board game industry? Like, people get paid to do these things? Like, you can make a living here, and so I've spent the last 4 years or so dicking around trying to find my place in the industry. But that's a part of how Drunk on Games became a thing, is I've now worked in the industry and run board game clubs long enough that one of these offshoot ideas just went, let's do this thing.
Yeah, so in your opinion, what are your favorite type of board games? I don't want to say what's your favorite board game, because obviously you have so many board games you play, but what type of board game do you gravitate more towards? Like, is there a genre, a theme, the way it plays, short, long, or is it just everything?
I play most everything, but I do have favorites, and for me, that is deck building or engine building games.
Right.
So a deck building game would be like Ascension or Dominion are some of the most popular ones. But in these games, you start with a small 10-card deck, and you use the cards that you draw each turn to purchase other cards that then get shuffled into your deck to make it better so that you can buy even better stuff and cascading effect down the line.
Right.
Engine building games are much the same, except they usually aren't a deck of cards. They do it in other ways. But they're very much the same thing. Everyone starts at right here, and how you interact with the game builds this engine that eventually outdoes everyone else. And I feel like I love those games the most because there's a real good amount of strategically building something, and it's the aspect of building it better than others. And I think that I appreciate the most, because we all started in the same place with the same options.
Right.
If I can outdo you, that just means I built it better. And so I feel like my competitive nature is part of why I really love those more than other games.
It's the thing, like, we all start at the same place, and I'm going to do better than each one of you. Look at and then obviously you play the game, and if you win, you're like, haha, I'm better than you.
A bit of that. I've gotten better at not being
a dick about it.
A dick about it, yes. But
that competitive nature, just like the want to win, the want to do better, that's the reason you gravitate towards those type of board games more than others, even though you like a lot of different types of other ones that tend to be your favorite.
Well, I also like them a lot. I feel like I am a very logical person. I love solving like puzzles, and to me, those games fit that niche. They're like a puzzle. Each turn, you're slowly putting the pieces together and building outwards, trying to build it into this complete picture that does amazing things. And like, especially in like Dominion, I've made beautiful decks of cards that are like 12 cards big, and you play every card every turn. But you had to like curate that deck, and you spent the whole game making the perfect deck and going, okay, but I need to make it fast enough, because if they make the end happen before I can get points out of this,
then it's all for naught.
Then it's all for naught. And so it's a lot of, you look at the board and go, there's a puzzle to this. How can I solve that puzzle? Right. And so I think that's a part of why.
You mentioned earlier, it was kind of like a side comment, but I've heard you I heard side remarks about it, but you've never explained to me fully. What's your problem with Monopoly? I mean, I don't play it. I don't even know if I played it yet. But I might have played it once, but I want to know fully descriptive why you don't like Monopoly, because obviously it's one of the I'm not gonna say best. I'm gonna say one of the most popular board games of all time. When you think of board games, it's right up there with them. Why? I don't want to say you hate Monopoly. You might hate it, but
I do.
Why do you hate Monopoly then?
I bluntly say I hate Monopoly, and honestly, most people in the gaming world that play modern board games hate Monopoly, and will blatantly admit that. But Monopoly is the most sold board game of all time. It is straight up. They've rehashed it and rethemed it and re-everythinged it, and it's been around for so long that it is the most popular board game of all time. Doesn't mean it's not a bad game. And it's a bad game mostly because of a lot of the things it does against game theory. So you're playing a game to have fun.
Right.
To do that when developing a game, you want to make sure you have meaningful choices each turn, that it's not purely luck. You want to make sure that you're going to be gaining. You're going to be enjoying the game as it goes. Like, sure, sometimes bad things will happen, but you have some kind of control over them.
Right.
Monopoly doesn't give you most of those things. In Monopoly, you roll dice and just deal with it. If you weren't there, if the dice rolled themselves and moved the pieces, the game could play itself. The part where you are involved is deciding whether or not to buy things, deciding whether or when to use trades. And that's about it. And deciding when to buy houses and property, upgrade property, hotels.
Yes.
That's about all the decisions you ever actually make in the game. Otherwise, the dice purely dictate your entire game.
And that's all based on luck at that point.
And that's just luck and let it happen. And that's not fun. That's just watching it happen. That's just rolling dice and saying, oh, it's a 7, I win.
Right.
But 6 hours long. And it also, one of the other reasonings is, there are entire blogs, by the way, I've helped write some of them, on what makes a game good and what are mechanics that are bad. And half of the things that Monopoly relies on are considered bad. Pure dice-based. You don't get to control your dice rolls.
Right.
You don't get to do anything about the dice. It's not like you can modify them. You can't add one, subtract one. You can't re-roll one dice. No options.
Right.
Roll it, do it. Secondly, player elimination. If 4 of us start this game, and early on one of us is out, that person now has to just sit there and watch the rest of us play for who knows how long until the next person's eliminated. And then, oh look, both of them have to watch the last 2 duke it out until finally somebody's actually won. And let's say we're both pretty equal, that's going to go on for a long, long time.
Right.
And that's horrendously annoying and boring. So that's just bad mechanics all around. So it's, to me, the way I like to explain it is, you can have exactly as much fun as you would in the entirety of Monopoly in 45 minutes. But have actually enjoyed those 45 minutes, not hate your friends, not want to flip a table.
Which is kind of like the stereotype every time Monopoly's on TV. Just like, it's a stereotype for a reason. Just Monopoly tends to bring out the worst in people, or just getting anger.
And again, a lot of that is because you don't control it.
Right.
You really do not control the game. You deal with what the game dictates. Which, again, that can be used right. Monopoly didn't use it right.
Right. So that kind of makes sense, because as a person who's played a few board games, but and for all the people who do like Monopoly, I haven't played Monopoly at all. So you're dealing with a Monopoly hater and a Monopoly never player. So people who like Monopoly are just hating this podcast right now.
I played Monopoly as a kid. Let me tell you this, okay? My dad ran his own construction company for over 30 years. And I gotta tell you, playing Monopoly against him as a kid was not the best experience, because he would kick my ass. Because he would make the best deals. But the crazy things, though, is looking back on those experiences, I've learned some very entertaining negotiating tactics in ways to make a trade look appetizing to you that's actually more beneficial to me. Like, it sounds like you're getting the better end of the deal, but in truth, I am.
And you're thinking the long game, right?
Yes. You get a later, better benefit for my immediate, smaller benefit. But because of the compounding interest of it, my smaller benefit's usually better in the long run than your later benefit.
Right.
So I've made a lot of those deals in a lot of other games. Like in Settlers of Catan, one of my favorite things to do, use this. It's going to win you games, okay?
Pay attention.
If you have 3 of the 4 resources to build a settlement,
right,
my favorite trade to do is say, I don't have brick, I need 1 brick. Anybody have a brick they're willing to give me, I will give you the next 2 resources I get. If you give me a brick now, you get 2 resources back. So you get a 2-to-1 out of this deal. You've just improved what you have.
Right.
But I got to build a settlement. and get paid for that settlement and not lose these cards.
Right.
So now I'm gaining more resources, better odds, and have less chance of losing out on things due to the robber, all for giving you one extra card back. And who even knows what that card is? By the way, my favorite part of these deals is if both of you forget, then they don't get their 2 cards back.
Ooh. So it's all about it's all about being sleazy, basically. It's like,
Oh, being sleazy would be saying I will make that deal and then not honoring it. Saying that we both forgot it even though I knew it was on there the whole time, that's slightly sleazy.
but it's not completely.
It's not, because then when they remember, I will immediately pay them and be like, oh, nope, you're right, I'll pay. I will always honor my trade.
You just have to remind me.
As long as you guys remind me, is the deal. Because if I do not honor the trade, then you won't do it next time.
Right.
And so you always want to make sure it happens. But again, that trade was more in my favor in the first place. It just happens to be extremely in my favor if I don't have to pay you back.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And now all the people who you ever play that game with are going to be like, fuck, I'm never giving him a break.
But again, it's still a very good deal. Like, if you're stuck without the right resources, or you just need more, then it might not be a bad play for you to give me that brick either. So, generally speaking, the amount I've gained over you is like a tiny bit more.
But
It's there, but it's a tiny bit
but
more.
the edge you need if you were for that competitive edge.
Yeah, but because we both won, we're actually both doing better than anyone else.
True.
So, at the same time, the people who do make those trades with me, we're both winning over everyone else. Downside is they're slightly losing against me.
Makes sense. So you're in the board game industry, right? Can you explain to our audience what that entails? What jobs have you done? What do you do in the board game industry? Just like give an explanation, just a general overview. You don't have to go into any specifics if you don't want to, but just like for a person who's just at minimum just likes playing board games, what does it mean to be, as you said, you were like, you can make money like designing board games or being in the industry? Like how did you, what's life like being in that industry?
Well, let me put a disclaimer on this.
Disclaimer.
The board game industry does not make a ton of money. All right? It is a lot of work, and it's usually years down the line before you're truly making profit. And the most common businesses are publishing companies. So they're the ones who make and publish the board games. So for Monopoly, that would have been Hasbro.
Right.
Hasbro is that publishing company. I work with a publishing company. My job specifically is convention manager. So I am the one in charge of booking our convention booths, deciding what games, what tables, what layout, what banners, all of the stuff that goes into making our booth beautiful, and shipping it to the convention, booking our flights, booking our hotels, who's going, all of that stuff. So I am in charge of dealing with our conventions and planning for them. There are plenty of other jobs in the industry, though. So publishers are the ones that sign other designers' games to publish them. It's a win-win. The publishers don't really have to create the game. They just have to finish it. And the designers don't have to do the hard work of publishing it. They don't have to find the marketing base. They don't have to do the physical sales. So it's a win-win industry there. Then you've got game designers who make the games, and you've got, like every other industry, you've got accountants, you've got social media and marketing. The board game industry is actually hugely active on Kickstarter. So for those of you that don't use Kickstarter or have barely used Kickstarter, Kickstarter is meant to be a platform where you say, I have this dream of making this thing. I don't have the money to do this thing. I need about this much money to do it. Hey, everybody, if you like that idea, help me make it happen. And so then people will back it, but usually you'll make different reward levels where you'll give them something back. The board game industry, it's basically become a pre-sale shop. We say, hey, we've done all the hard work. We know what we're going to do. We've got the game. Here it is. We just need to make about 1,000 copies of it. So how many of you want it? And then everyone pays the money up front. We use that to publish the game and print it.
Right.
And then we ship all of those copies out. And all of the extra copies Because usually about 300 copies will pay for 1,000.
Right.
But then the rest of that 700, the sales difference is now profit.
Right.
So now you can start to break even, make your profit back, and get ahead so that you can afford to just print the next game.
Right.
So there's a ton of industry jobs and companies based around the concept of kickstarting your games, as well as all kinds of other things. One of the ones that I want to do is actually start a board game bar. So I find that once you've left college, or high school if you don't go to college, then it becomes extremely difficult to make new friends, make new connections. That's why there's things like Meetup and all kinds of different clubs and random things out there. And so for me, I want to start a board game bar with the premise that it's meant for adults, meant for people college and beyond,
right,
who like gaming, who like drinking, or at least don't mind drinking with friends, even if it's non-alcoholic stuff, and to mash that together. And to just this place that's the main goal of it is you walk in, even if you walk in by yourself, then there will be people there that are like, cool, you're interested in playing games? What kind of games? Maybe you can join this group, and they'll help you find groups to make new friends and play games with.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of board game cafes and arcade bars and things out there that exist, but most of them are focused more on you play the games with the friends you went with.
Right.
And I'd really love to make a space. That's where the booze comes in. Give you a little more social lubricant. But I'd really love to make a space where it's about actually socializing with others through, again, that safe space of gaming.
Right. So, since we're on that topic, our whole channel is Drunk on Games, where you guys basically pick a board game for that week and try to apply some sort of drinking rules to coincide with playing that game. So, can you explain the process of just like each week or each month or however long it takes you to come up with a video idea, what game you're going to want to play with your friends, and then trying to figure out, okay, what type of alcohol we're going to use, or if it's non-alcoholic, non-alcohol, and how are we going to implement it so people obviously drink while playing the game. It's like when I roll the dice, if it's a 1, I have to take the shot or something like that. Like, go into the process of like creating that type of just what creative juices go through your mind when you pick a game and then have to apply drinking rules to it?
Well, a part of starting the YouTube channel was to get a audience used to the idea of drinking rules for board games, because again, when I run that board game bar, every game is going to have on the inside of the box lid written drinking rules. So you can play the game or you can play by the drinking rules. Creating the drinking rules, it's an interesting process. At this point, I've made enough drinking rules that they kind of overlap from game to game.
Right.
But usually the idea is play the game a few times and notice what are those aha moments. What are those, moments where you'd like to give drinks, or those sad moments where you're like, oh, I failed, therefore I drink.
Right.
And find those moments and write down a small list of them, and then pick out your favorite ones. And then that's the drinking rules. So the things that I always keep in mind, though, are, if it's like a time-based game, like Werewolf.
Right.
If you've only got so long, I try to make it so the drinking rules don't interrupt the flow of the game. So they're usually after a round is over, or as like a punishment for really stupid questions or stalling.
Right.
Or you also, my goal at least, is if you've played the game for about an hour, you should be tipsy.
Right.
That is the goal of how much drinking should go on. So if you tune into our Clank Legacy streams, we're almost always drunk by the end of that because the game is 3 hours long.
Right.
So the rules really do get us tipsy in an hour, and then 2 more hours of that.
Right. That would be 3 hours of drinking. You're just slowly just like.
Yeah, by the end we get pretty wasted.
Right.
Nobody went to work after last week's stream.
Ooh.
Nope. But there's a few other things that make it interesting in the legacy games, because a legacy game is a game that evolves as you play it.
Right.
So each game is similar, but what you did last round unlocked new things for the next round. If you watch through the stream, you'll see us read from a booklet a bunch of things, and they give us new permanent cards or get rid of ones. You sticker all kinds of stuff. And in the theme of it being a legacy game that evolves over time, we also evolve a drinking rule each round. So each round we add one new one based on what was interesting about the last game.
Right.
So, like, there's now a ton of event cards in the deck for Clank Legacy. So the last drinking rule we added was every time an event comes up, assign a drink to somebody. And then the one rule that we always do live by but don't necessarily advertise is we don't care what you want to drink. So you can drink hard liquor, you can drink beer, you can drink water. We do not care what you drink. We just care that you pee as much as the rest of us. So, you drink as much liquid as the rest of us, is the rule of that. And that always ties in with our favorites, which is hydrate or dihydrate.
Ooh.
Yes.
Good quote to live by.
Yeah, because lately we've been dehydrating for Clank.
Might want to hydrate a little bit.
Yeah, we're trying to make all the new drinking rules a lot weaker, but they're still supposed to be based on what was interesting.
Right.
So... they're still, it's getting worse.
Right. So, I actually got a list here. As we were talking about, you said how Monopoly was the #1 selling game. Funny you mentioned that because I actually pulled up, according to moneyinc.com of this year, or I guess last year now, the top 20 best-selling board games of all time. And I will tell you, Monopoly is not #1.
No.
It is not. So I'm gonna go down this list from 20 to 1, and you're gonna just quickly say if it's like, is it justly in the top 20? Is it overrated or is it underrated? And I have a feeling, based on, because this is obviously by popularity, it's probably gonna be a lot overrated, especially since Monopoly isn't one. But I'll say it is top 5.
All right, fair. I'm actually really curious then to hear the top one.
And if you're thinking just modern board games, that might be where you're messing up your logic.
No. The thing is if you're going for sales of all time, then games that have been around longer naturally get to win.
Right. So
they've had longer to sell more.
So I'm gonna go 20 to 1, and you're gonna tell me if you think, yeah, that sounds about right.
I'll tell you whether they're good or they're not.
Good or basically, yeah. Tell me if they're good or not, or they're like they're good, they're okay.
All right.
Or if they're like, I don't know how it's gotten the top 20 at all. Like, I don't know why people like it.
Bring it on.
All right, we got number 20. We got Connect 4.
Standard. Okay.
All right. 19. Cranium.
Cranium. Okay.
I'm gonna mess up some of these names. So
I bet it's not on the list, but you know my favorite trivia game actually is?
What?
Wits and Wagers.
No, it's not on this list.
Yeah, it's definitely not on the list. Wits and Wagers is a trivia game that does not require you to know trivia answers. Ooh. That is always the problem with trivia games, is you need to actually know the freaking answers.
Thanks, Jeopardy.
Right? In Wits and Wagers, every answer is a number. So everyone writes the number they think it is, and then you put them in a row from lowest to highest, and then you bid on which one you think is right, and the Price is Right method.
Okay.
So the closest to it without going over is actually correct. And through group knowledge, most people end up bidding more or less correct.
Right.
But you can write complete wrong answer. Every time it's a date and I don't know what it is, I just write 1492. I'm like,
Sounds about right. 1492.
It's there or later, probably.
It's there, plus or minus of all time. So we got, I think we're at 18 now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pronounce some of these because I just don't know how to say it. Blockus?
Blockus is a very good game.
Okay.
Blockus is a game about trying to fit weirdly shaped blocks into a board, and you're slowly running out of space. So it's 2 or 4 people playing against each other, and you're slowly trying to fit your weird pieces, but in ways that will force the others to not be able to fit theirs later.
All right. That actually sounds kind of cool.
It is a good game.
I think this is 17 now. I might be getting numbers wrongly.
That's fine.
It might even be 20. I looked up top 20. I could fuck up and messed up one.
17.
So 17, we got Mandala. Mandala?
Mancala?
Probably autocorrected to just Mandala. I don't know. Maybe it's Mancala.
I think it's Mancala.
All right.
Mancala makes sense, but Mancala is a weird thing. A lot of people have Mancala boards because they look great. It's those long boards with like 10 little scoop zones.
Oh yeah, I know it is though. Yeah,
with the big ones on the end and just the gem beads in it. And your goal is to get the most into your side. But there's like 7 variants of how you can play that game, and nobody honestly knows a real answer to which one is right.
I've definitely tried to play that game, and I definitely lost. Right, I think it's 16 now. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes.
Stratego?
Stratego is like... Oh, it's like if you wanted to play chess, but with hidden information. So you've got a board full of one-sided pieces, so you know what piece it is, they do not. And as you move them around when they interact, the higher number generally wins, except there's a couple of them that are like bombs and explode and just kill everything else with them. There's the spy that can kill the highest number only.
Right.
And whenever you check, you now know what that thing is permanently. So if you lose a piece, at least you know what that one is permanently.
Right.
So it adds a layer of strategizing and running around instead of just move forward and take pawns.
So good, bad. Okay.
Oh, it's good.
Good? Alright, so I think it's 15 now. We got Catan.
Catan is a great game.
You already...
I've played far too much Catan. Honestly, at this point, it's an overrated game because everyone's played far too much Catan. If you've never played mini board games, though, Settlers of Catan is a good place to start.
Alright, so then next we have Risk.
Risk is a horrible game.
Yeah, that wasn't even hesitation.
No, Risk is okay. Remember the problem with Monopoly?
Right.
Roll dice, deal with it. So that's
literally all Risk.
Well, Risk is a prime example of war games, and there are tons of people who love war games, and they always do this. But war games go, here's my troops, there's your troops. Now roll dice and see who wins. And I hate those games because, again, there's nothing much you can do to edit your dice or whatnot. Yes, sure, more units can give you better odds, but it's such slight manipulation that it's just not worth even bothering. And again, it's a game that lasts like 3+ hours that should honestly last 1.
All right. Oh, fuck. Next we have, I think it's 14 or 15. 14, I think now. We got Pictionary.
Pictionary is great.
Makes sense. I've played it like once. It's okay.
Yeah, you draw things. Is it a jackal? It's a jackal.
It's a jackal.
You know, I made somebody's word a jackal once, and everyone lost.
No
one knew how to draw it and get it across.
It's like just get a dog or...
Oh yeah, that's basically what happened. And everyone's just like, dog, cat,
wolf?
I don't know, wolf thing. And I'm just sitting there like, see, this is funny. Everyone makes the joke and then forgets about it.
Okay, we got 13 now or 12.
Don't worry about the numbers.
We got Othello.
Othello's great. You played?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, Othello it's a game that reminds you of Oreos because they're a bunch of small round pieces that are white on one side and black on the other. And you play as one of those teams, and your goal is to cover the board with mostly your color. And so each piece you have to place in an outwards fashion, and if between my piece and another of my piece is any of the other color, they all flip over and become my color. Right. So you're slowly kind of trying to chain these long takedowns and turn the board into mostly your stuff.
I'll check it out. It sounds so good, bad.
It's good. It's
okay.
2 players only.
Okay.
It's more strategic.
Right.
So but it's good.
We have Rumicube. Rumicube. That's just how it was spelled. Rumicube.
Yeah, Rummikub.
Rummikub.
You ever played Rummy?
No.
Gin Rummy?
No.
Okay, cool. Well, if you Gin Rummy is a card game where you usually have 7 cards and you're trying to make a set of 3 and a set of 4. And the set is like triples or 4 of a kind or a run in the same suit. Rummikub made it in tiles. And no, we play a different one. we play Oklahoma Gin. That is a different variation of the same game. But Rummy Cube is where they basically printed it on tiles and gave it Uno colors and acted like it wasn't Rummy.
Right.
But it's exactly the same game of Rummy.
Okay, so we're getting to, I think we're at top 10 now. So this is at 10 now, I think. So we got Game of Life.
Life.
So just life.
You know, I just watched a fantastic video on the origins of that game, and it looked absolutely nothing like the current game set. Apparently, it was released like 30 years before it got a makeover to become the current game. And yet again, it's another game of roll dice, or in this case, spin a wheel, and deal with it. So, not very good.
You're right, not good. All right, then we got 9, Candyland. I was laughing when I was reading it.
Oh, man.
Because I know it's popular, but...
So what's the top one? Snakes and Ladders, then?
No, thank God, no.
Oh, man.
The top 3 or top 4 are... At least 3 of the top 4. You would know them, but maybe you're not thinking them. Or maybe you are.
Probably. The thing is most of the ones that are going to be in this top 10 are going to be just old school Hasbro games.
Right.
Or Milton Bradley games. And that's going to be what these things are. And it's not to say that they are bad games. It's that game theory has evolved so much since then. Back then, you didn't know the rules of what makes a game good, what makes a game bad, or even if you did understand those rules, you had to spend years figuring it out. Now we have the internet. You can look up blogs on anything.
Right.
You can figure out, you can start making a game and then look up all of the statistics and all the details to make your game perfect. And then playtest it. And then get feedback from people around the world without even seeing them in person. Like, it's crazy what we can do compared to back then. But Candyland is an okay game. Candyland's a game that you should add drinking rules to.
Alright, because it's just the baseline, just like, it's just Candyland.
It's just do things, and you know what? Drink for them.
Right. Alright, so next we have Battleship.
Of course. Battleship is fun. Monotonous, but fun.
Alright, so just good. Just good.
Yeah, it's good.
Alright, next we have, I think I got this, Trivial Pursuit.
Trivial Pursuit is a horrible trivia game.
Ooh. Oh yeah, you hate trivia games, that's right.
So first off, trivia games are bad because they require you to memorize things. And unless you've memorized things, then you're bad at them. I don't memorize things. I make them up as I go. I much rather play improv games about bullshit and things, than in trivia games. But then you also look at Trivial Pursuit and go, hey, look, like a fifth of the board is covered in Roll Again. Did that add anything to the game? No, it's just a useless spot that makes you do it again.
Right. So, no.
No. If you want to play that game, honestly, just take the trivia cards out and forget the dice.
So just throw out the game.
Yeah, just do it as trivia.
You're right. This is trivia night, not trivia.
Trivia night's fine because you're going there knowing that you're there for trivia, and usually they theme it, and you're like, oh, I can know this theme.
Right.
If you did trivia on something I know, like board games, I'd be interested. But Trivial Pursuit's usually just ancient knowledge of random things that nobody wants to memorize anymore.
All right. So next, we got this. I believe 6. This is Clue.
Clue. Oh,
got a movie. Literally got a movie.
Clue is fun. Clue, I know of games that have done the mechanics better, but again, we have better game theory now. But the idea of having some hidden information in everyone's hand and slowly getting it revealed, and how you can interpret what that means to get perfect knowledge later, is a great idea. And I've played a lot of games based on that concept, and they're fun. If you want to play a game like Clue, but extremely much more difficult, you should try Alchemy.
Alchemist? One of the two. Alchemy or Alchemist. It's one of them.
On my shelf over there. I think it's Alchemist.
Right.
By CEG. CEG. The guys who made Codenames.
Oh, okay. I know that. Ooh, sorry, Codenames is not on this list. You can eliminate that.
Oh, God, I knew that.
All right, we're on.
Codenames is very, 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 very popular. but it's only been out for like 5 years.
Right. All right. So we're in the top 5.
All right.
And I already know you hate one of them because you already know it's Monopoly.
Oh, look, it's Monopoly.
All right. At 5, we have Scrabble.
Scrabble's fine.
Scrabble's fine.
Yeah. Scrabble is make words.
No, you know dictionary. I'm gonna win.
I prefer the electronic versions of Scrabble where they just deny it if it's not a word. Because then you can also kind of dick around with a few options and be like, I think this is how you spell this thing, right? No? Okay. Like, you don't have to actually have memorized your spelling. It's basically like, like playing Words with Friends is probably the most popular one right now, but it's basically like if you played Scrabble with a light spell check. It doesn't come up with the words for you. You can bullshit though, but it at least
helps steers you in the direction.
It at least stops you from making stupid mistakes like just spelling it wrong and then everyone calls you on it and you lose.
All right, number 4. You already talked about it. You hate it. Monopoly. Skip it. All right,
we're the top. Not the top one.
We're top 3 now, and it might be you're right in terms of like the older it is, the more popular, but you might not be thinking far back.
Let me guess then.
All right, guess the top 3. You mentioned one of them a few of them ago, but that was a while back.
Oh my god, is Jenga one of them?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure if Jenga...
Not saying that Jenga's bad, it's not on here. You're thinking a little... You're still, I think, thinking too modern. Alright, I'm gonna go into...
Guess who?
No. He's going to... Do you mind... By the way, May, I have my friend May, and his girlfriend May is right in the corner. That's who he talked to earlier. But...
Alright, what do we got?
Top 3, we have... This first one I'm gonna mess up, flub so bad. Backgammon. Backgammon.
Backgammon. Oh, duh. Oh, wait. That means chess is the first place.
What's 2 then?
Checkers. Damn it. Of course, if you count those 3, then yeah, they're literally ancient games.
So, you're right in terms of modern times, Monopoly is by far one. But if you were to put
checkers and backgammon do count. You're right, and they are the most ancient games. Backgammon is actually a good game.
My grandpa actually was like a chess champion in the day, and I tried to play against him once. I lost in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, and he was toying with me. He literally went to our house for like Christmas parties. Literally went onto the computer and just played online chess and destroyed people. He just on his computer, just all he did was play chess on the computer. He destroyed people.
Chess is a good game to really get your critical thinking down.
Right.
Because you need to not just think of what you can do. You need to think of what they could do, what they think you could do, and what they will do because they think you will do it, and therefore what you should do to stop what they think that you should be doing. Yeah, if that wasn't confusing, it shouldn't be.
That's why computers are beating most humans, but somehow humans still beat computers.
Well, for chess, there is a finite amount of moves for chess.
Right.
And at this point, computers are plenty good enough to know every possible best move. So you should never be able to beat a computer because they know the exact move sets to beat anything you ever do. Because they can calculate to the entire end of the game in every move set possible every time you make a move. And they've got some like obvious paths to take.
Right.
Because there's like obviously good moves and some obviously bad moves. So usually they just know these things ahead of time. And that cuts down on computing power. No, if you want a challenging game, try Go.
Go?
Go.
Just Go.
Yeah. It's a Japanese game with the black and white stones.
I think I've heard of it, yeah.
Yep, you've just got a big old board. It's just a grid, like you're doing Kyle Kilmer grid, and you put your pieces on any of the intersecting places. But it's very simple. If you surround their piece comes away, and that's a point for you. And that's pretty much the rules to it. And it's just about leveraging your control over territories in like major ways before you get to the nitty-gritty actual fights for the zones. That's complicated.
Right.
There's so many layers for how that can go and go wrong, and they do not have a computer good enough to calculate that. Well, they might have they're getting to computers that are becoming good enough, but not to the extent where
they can the chess one.
Yeah, in the chess one they have perfected it because they can calculate to the end every move.
I think I saw an article on Champ.
Oh, it's very possible.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's very, very possible.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I mean, they
Chess
literally,
checkers and-
once if they ever they lose, they're just like, okay, well, now I know I can lose that way. I won't ever do it again. Thanks, Terminators. I mean, yeah, we love being world dominated by robots.
Just tell us what to do.
Just tell us what to do.
As long as I get to have fun.
Right. So, all right. So you got all the top 20, right? So for majority, I feel like you did say a lot of them were good, but obviously, Monopoly shit. In your opinion, in his opinion, I know people are diehards. I mean, obviously, it's top 4 selling game of all time for board games, but
You'll see. It'll be replaced. Don't worry.
it'll be.
But no, chess, checkers, and backgammon are all good games, and that's the reason they've stood the test of time.
Right.
They've been around longer than any of these other ones.
So, in your opinion, so obviously most of these games have been around at least 20, 30, 40 years, pretty much all of these. So that's why they're obviously top 20 all time sold. But in your opinion, what are some games that probably came out in the last 5 to 10 years? You're just like, this is the next one. These are the 5 that I'm like, these are the next 5 after the 20. That either like, these are probably going to stand the test of time, if not just, or at least just, they're going to be the most popular ones.
Well, for those of you that don't know, there is a wonderful website called Board Game Geek, or BGG. It is just a database of all board games ever. It does have things like backgammon, pinochle, chess. It has ridiculous ancient games as well as all the modern ones. But in Board Game Geek, they have ratings for all games based on the community ratings. So you can actually get the globalized best games lists. In fact, I've watched a video earlier today on some of the top 100 board games on Board Game Geek, or returning to the top 100 or top 10. But some of probably the best as of recently, well, you've got my favorite game of all, which is Aeon's End.
Aeon's End?
Aeon's End is a cooperative deck building game.
Right.
Made by a guy named Kevin Riley and published by Indie Boards and Cards. I love that game. I mostly don't like cooperative games because I can usually see what the best options are and just tell everyone what to do. But in Aeon's End, that is not a problem. You are defending the town against the monster of the week.
Right.
But it's a cooperative deck builder.
Okay.
So everybody has their own unique starting 10 cards, and it's different. Your 10 are different than mine. And then we've got the buy area, and so you'll focus on something while I focus on something else. And because of that, we're busy focusing on our own things enough to go, well, I know you kind of deal with this thing. Can you deal with that problem this monster's throwing at us?
Right.
But I haven't memorized your deck. Like, it's just not feasible to know everything in that game.
Right.
And so it makes it a really wonderful game. You actually do need to work together. Even an alpha gamer like myself that usually just kind of takes over and tells everyone what to do still ends up in that game a lot of times listening to plenty of other people's advice and doing whatever works. So I love that game. That is my favorite. I do not believe it is in the top most sold.
Not the most sold, but just like the ones you like believe are just like, these are going to be the next. If I were to go 21, 25, but they're only of recent, like last 10 years, like which ones are you like thinking like, okay, well, these are the games I know for a fact are going in the next 50 years, they're going to be right behind these 20. Or at least just predict 50 years out.
Oh, in the long run, I can see Settlers of Catan moving into that list because it's become like the new Monopoly. It's the basic thing that everyone gets from Target.
Right. It's on the list, but you feel like it's going to go even higher.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like Monopoly will eventually start to drop down.
Probably never going to go out of the top 20, but
it'll take it a long time, if ever, to get out of the top 20.
But it won't be top 5, you think, in the next 50 years?
Oh, I don't know. If you look at the actual numbers from their sales, Monopoly sold hundreds of millions, not billions. It's like order of magnitudes more.
It's just
other
growing
games.
by name alone now.
But it's proof how high Settlers of Catan was in that list
Right.
compared to all these other big games that have been out forever. That the newer age of games are finally starting to show their name.
Right.
So Settlers of Catan's definitely one of them.
I'm gonna go 5. You just go like where your gut instinct's telling you.
Well, my gut instinct tells me that the more popular and will last for a long time games like Exploding Kittens, I think, could make that
I've
list.
played that. That is pretty fun.
Exploding Kittens was one of the most successful board game Kickstarters ever. They made over 10 million on their Kickstarter. By the way, I do know the profit margin, and it's ridiculous.
I'll share it. Don't want to.
They reinvested a lot of that money into making the box worth it. That's why, when you open it up, it's got the light sensor and meows at you, or
Yeah.
the new party editions, and I could see Exploding Kittens being on that list. I would have put Cards Against Humanity on that list, but I feel like it's finally phasing out because it is a good game, and it was an amazing game. But now, everyone's made the best combinations in it enough times to kind of be over it, and there's a ton of spin-off games based on that concept. So now you've got things like What Do You Meme, Cyanide and Happiness game.
It's more that the concept of that type of game is going to be long lasting, but maybe not that exact.
Well, they weren't even the first ones to make it. Apples to
Right.
Apples was actually the first one to make that party
I
game.
didn't know that.
Yeah, Apples to Apples is the exact same thing. Cards Against Humanity just took that concept and said, what if dirty? And not just dirty, what if full sentences in dirty? And then, multiple cards, multiple this, all kinds of stuff. Because Apples to Apples was just straight nouns and verbs.
Right.
And you just needed the nouns that match that verb the best.
Right.
But Cards Against Humanity took it that step further it needed to go. And also took it and made it, PG. And that was a big deal.
13.
Yeah, PG-13
Rated
or
R, basically.
yeah, they took it and made it legit, and proved that the gaming industry, nerds have grown.
Right.
We're no longer kids that need to be, babbled into loving games.
And playing
We're
Monopoly.
adults. Yeah, we're adults that actually like to sit down and strategize and play real things, or
Right.
dick around and have a good time and have a drink or two. So, Cards Against Humanity is a great game, but like I said, I think it's overplayed, and so it won't actually hit this list. I don't know, because a lot of the best games of the last while are kind of going to phase in and out.
Right. Because the industry's so big now.
The most popular game, probably of the last 2 years, has been Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is this big box. Big box.
Big
okay?
box.
But it's this big old box full of just about everything you need to play it. And it's like a D&D campaign.
Right.
But it's more focused on the battle system and less focused on the story. So there is a story that you read each one, but then you lay out the map, you put out the enemies, you get your guys ready, and you go and you fight through this dungeon.
Right.
So each round is actually really just a dungeon crawl.
Okay.
So that game, we played it for over 8 months. And
On your YouTube channel, right?
no, actually, this
in
was
general?
before the YouTube channel.
Okay.
We made drinking rules for it, though, and they're very appropriate until you start unlocking later characters, and then you kind of screw yourself over because they make the drinking rules more common. Yeah, but Gloomhaven is a fantastic game.
Gloomhaven, okay.
The thing is I don't think it'll make that list because they're already making Frosthaven, which is the new standalone big box that's going to come out by the end of the year or by early next year is their goal. So Gloomhaven itself, while it's amazing and definitely great, I think it's kind of a period-specific thing. Like, as the years go by, it's going to slowly decline until it phases out because it's being replaced by the next one and the next one, which is a big part of, I think, the problem now. Is it's actually a very common saying, but in board game industry, there's a lot of the cult of the new.
Right.
And it's the idea that, ooh, that new shiny game looks so good, let me buy it. And then you buy it, and then you play it twice, and then you put it on your shelf, and then ooh, look at that shiny new game, let me buy it.
And you just keep...
And you keep doing that. And so they've actually developed entire, like, there's a thing that a lot of people are doing now called the 10 by 10 challenge. And it's pick 2 games that you think you like a lot, and you're challenged to play each of them 10 times throughout the year.
Right.
Because that idea means that you have to actually play it enough to warrant it was worth it. Also, a part of the reason that I'm enjoying legacy games more currently is because they're a fun game that's worth it, but that I'm going to play until I'm done with the story. And so that means, like, for Clank Legacy, we're going to play 10 rounds.
Right.
For Aeon Zen Legacy, we played 9 rounds. For Betrayal, we played 16 rounds. Like, these games get played more consistently because they gave you a reason to play more than just one game.
Right.
And while they're still fun games on their own, it was, it's that extra little push that I think does wondrous things.
So it's more that it's not that it's what games are going to be more popular, but it's going to be more like now that the board game industry is so large, it's going to be the concepts that get popular for a while, and they're going to phase in and out.
Well, I think it's more... The question you asked was a little harder to answer because you're saying what will become the new most sold board games. And I don't know that any of them will, because I think that needs to be, what are the new classics that are going to last forever?
Right.
And like I said, Settlers of Catan is on that list. I think Splendor is on that list, if you ask me. But there's a ton of games that I could list that are amazing and great games that I think are just going to phase out.
Right.
Or be replaced with something similar but slightly different 5 years down the line, and therefore nobody will ever buy the old one anymore. It'll stop being published and it'll go away. And that's why I think this list technically won't really get overwritten. Right. That these giants of the industry are honestly just going to keep their places by the end.
Just on name alone at this point?
No, because even if we stop buying them, I just don't think anything else will ever be bought as much as them.
Okay.
Because we do make enough new games now. Back in the day, there was nothing other than Monopoly,
just these 20.
And Clue, and there was only like 20, 30 games out. So you picked or bought all of them. If you loved games, you bought all 20 games, and you were like, hey, I've got all the games that exist.
But now with such the mass number of them, it's more like it's going to be really hard for one of these games to get close to this top 20 spot.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah, so I think that's all I got for me to ask you. It was a really nice conversation, really understood more about board games, because I play board games. I've come to your board game night a few times, but I've never really understood how deep it goes in terms of like all the type of genres, your love for it, just the drinking aspect that you guys implement. It's just that I never really grasped how massive the industry is now. Even though I knew it felt like board games are more popular than ever, now I know why. I know why. And thank you for that. So, is there anything, last things you want to say? Any plugs? You got any plugs? You got any plugs?
Well, like I said, European plugs are cool. Because they're round. They're round slots.
Yeah, any sponsored
actual plugs?
Yes.
So first off, check out our YouTube channel, Drunk on Games. We have a lot of fun, and we want to make sure you enjoy watching all of us have a lot of fun. Plus, you will then learn all of the drinking rules to make sure that you have even more fun with your own games at home. And it's a good place to find new games. Because if you like a chill atmosphere where it's more of like a party or a gathering, then that's a lot of what we play for our channel. Except for the legacy games. The legacy games are like 3-hour monsters where we actually think too much until we fry our brains. On the flip side there, when's this going live?
As soon as I'm done editing it and cutting everything
So within a week or two?
Probably within a week.
Okay, good. Well then another thing I would plug, I'll wait for you to do the bottle down.
Alright, I'm sorry. Hydrate, not dehydrate.
Yeah. So another thing I'd love to plug is I am a big sucker for fantasy novels and books and sci-fi novels and books, and there is a wonderful new board game that Bard Games, the company I work with, is publishing.
All right.
It's all based on the artwork of the man, the legend, Josh Kirby.
Ooh.
So he was an amazing illustrator that did basically all of the sci-fi stuff, all of the best sci-fi artwork from like the 40s to the 90s, including things like the Discworld book covers, a bunch of stuff for Terry Pratchett, the Foundation series from Isaac Asimov. He did the Return of the Jedi poster.
Ooh, that's an amazing poster.
Oh yeah, he's the man. All right, and so he has passed away a while back, but his family owns the rights to all of the art, and we have licensed it to make this game. So it is a sci-fi game, of course, where you are exploring and conquering or peacefully negotiating with the different worlds. And each of the worlds is a big old tarot card size with one of these artworks. And so there's tons of different worlds with all these different beautifully amazing artworks each. And the game is fun. But you can check that out on Kickstarter right now. The game is called The Lost Worlds of Josh Kirby. So go check it out. You can see a live play where I kicked the designer's butt in the game and the publishing owner. I was not nice, but it was a lot of fun, and you can check it out on the Kickstarter.
And so that's coming out. Is there a day when that's releasing, or?
Well, so the Kickstarter's live now,
right?
And the Kickstarter will end. We've got like 20 days or so left.
Okay, so you're in the last stretch.
It's gonna end early March.
Okay.
I don't remember what day, but early March it will end. At that point, if you've missed out, don't worry. We've got a couple of late pledge opportunities.
Right.
But the game then will be sent to the publishing, and at that point we will wait for the printing to happen and be done, approved, and get shipped to America. So the game will flip probably about 4 months later. So that's what?
July-ish, summertime?
Yeah, sometime around August is when I expect the game to be here.
All right.
So go back it now so that you can get your copy.
Early on.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so thank you for everything you've taught me about board games. I'm gonna come more on Tuesday, I promise. But this is a really interesting conversation we had about board games, how much you hate Monopoly. That was fun. That was hella fun. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching or listening to the GoLoco podcast. If you want to support me directly monetarily, I have a Patreon. So support that Patreon, patreon.com/GoLocoPod. And whenever you are, peace out. Thank you. And hope you guys have a nice day.